And there it is. You're looking at the American-made rocket and spacecraft that will return American astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time since the retirement of the space shuttle, last flown nearly 9 years ago. Today, we're giving it another shot with our partners at SpaceX. Wednesday's first attempt was postponed due to that wild weather. But if all goes well today, we will mark a new first in NASA's storied history and usher in the commercial crew era of American spaceflight.
At 3:32 Eastern Time this afternoon, NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken are expected to lift off from Pad 39A aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft atop a Falcon 9 rocket. If the weather cooperates, today's attempt will mark SpaceX's first ever flight with crew and the beginning of a new chapter in human spaceflight.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Kennedy Space Center, home of the wild Florida weather, which is why we're sitting inside again today, but this time a little bit closer with some plexiglass between us. We're looking at it this morning. The teams are going to continue to monitor things, so it's kind of touch and go, but at last check, it was a 50-50 chance. So hopefully those odds are going to be, I don't know if they're going to improve, but 50-50's not bad. It could be worse, right?
Today's mission will be Crew Dragon's second test flight and its first test with humans on board. We're a little more than 4 hours away from liftoff. Bob and Doug have had their lunch and have completed their medical checks in advance of launch. In about 15 minutes, NASA is going to turn the crew over to the SpaceX team. And once that happens, there are a series of key milestones to complete as we count down to T0. The first one is suit up. Now, the suit-up room is located in NASA's Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, or the ONC. Here, the SpaceX team is going to help the astronauts put on their suits and perform key suit checkouts. From there, the next step is crew walkout. The astronauts are going to leave the ONC building for final goodbyes with friends and family gathered outside of the facility before they head out to the launch pad.
And following final goodbyes, the crew will get in a Tesla and begin the roughly 20-minute drive to Pad 39A. Now, once at the pad, the crew will ascend the fixed service structure in order to board the spacecraft in a process we call crew ingress. During ingress, the SpaceX team will run a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and the vehicle interactions are all functioning properly.
And after all the vehicle and crew checkouts are completed, the SpaceX closeout team will close Dragon's hatch with Bob and Doug safe inside. About 40 minutes before launch, the crew access arm, which is that long suspended walkway that the astronauts are going to use to board Dragon, it's going to retract away, followed by the arming of the launch escape system.
Once the arm is retracted and the escape system is armed, that's when propellant loading on the Falcon 9 rocket will begin. About 5 minutes before liftoff, Dragon will be configured for what we call terminal count. This is when Dragon's onboard computers take control of the vehicle.
And at T0, again, a little over 4 hours from now, if all goes well and the weather cooperates, Crew Dragon and Falcon 9 will lift off from Pad 39A, carrying astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. Roughly 12 minutes after liftoff, Dragon will separate from Falcon 9's second stage, enter its activation phase, and begin using its own onboard propulsion system to carry Bob and Doug to their destination, which is the International Space Station. And as I mentioned previously, Bob and Doug are just finishing up their lunch, and we are currently awaiting their arrival to the suit-up room.
And while we await that, you will notice over the course of this broadcast that we do not have crowds gathered here at Kennedy Space Center. And that, of course, is one of the impacts of our protocols to protect each other and our teams. We would normally have tens of thousands of guests here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida to view the launch. But even though we couldn't host a lot of guests here, you can still join us through every step of this historic mission from wherever you are. We have a team dedicated to those of you following along on social media, and NASA's Tahira Allen is in Washington right now leading that effort.
I don't want to sway the vote, but, I'm all about that worm.
Meatball.
The debate rages on.
Aside from our debate, the main purpose of today's demonstration mission is to put Crew Dragon through the final operational tests to officially certify the vehicle for human spaceflight. The SpaceX and NASA teams have put years of work in development, testing, and training to get us here today, and now we are just around the corner from seeing Falcon 9, Crew Dragon, and Bob and Doug lift off for the first time, and doing it from that same historic launch pad that first sent humans to the moon more than 50 years ago.
Hey, good morning, Marie. Thanks so much. First off, hashtag Team Worm. But hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name's Dan Hewitt. We're here for round 2 for this historic launch.
And Dan, we're so glad to have you back here today. Hopefully the weather is working in our favor today. It looks really sunny and nice out there, so fingers crossed. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX, and we are so honored to be NASA's partner in returning humans to space from the shores of Kennedy Space Center. 10 years ago, we sent the Dragon that's displayed right behind us on its first orbital demonstration flight, and I speak for all of us here at SpaceX when I say we could not be more excited to finally be sending humans to the International Space Station.
And just as a refresher, today's mission is known as Demonstration Mission 2 or Demo 2. This is going to be the first time a commercially built spacecraft will launch people to the space station. Demo 2 is an end-to-end flight test from launch to docking all the way to splashdown in the Atlantic at the end of their mission. And this is the final test for NASA to certify SpaceX for regular crew flights to the space station.
Mission Control will have insight and command of Dragon systems for the entirety of this upcoming mission. And since Dragon is a highly autonomous vehicle, our teams in Mission Control will be continuously monitoring the health and performance of the spacecraft through the entire duration of its journey. That's from liftoff all the way until Dragon splashes back down on Earth.
It's a huge advancement in the safety of human spaceflight, and SpaceX was able to demonstrate the system in 2 important tests. The first one coming back in 2015 with the pad abort test, which we're watching some video back from right now. And then a little bit more recently, last January of this year, the in-flight abort test. Dragon's launch escape system is outfitted with 8 Super Draco engines that are integrated directly into the spacecraft body. This enables Dragon to separate from Falcon 9 and carry astronauts to safety in case of an emergency on the launch pad or all the way up to orbit. And we can't forget the significance of our first demonstration mission just last year, which itself was an end-to-end flight test to and from the International Space Station, just no actual humans on board.
Now, we just finished up a weather briefing to the crew a few minutes ago. Conditions at Kennedy Space Center for launch, 50% chance of violating conditions, which is also 50% chance of good conditions.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to Mission Control Houston. This room you see behind me is one of 3 flight control rooms at the Johnson Space Center, also known as Flight Control Room 1. This is where teams monitor and direct all of the operations on the International Space Station. It remains staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And today the team is especially focused on monitoring today's launch operations and making final preparations for Bob and Doug to dock with the station tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Rex. My takeaway from what Rex had to say is, you're telling me there's a chance. I know there's a chance. There's a pretty good chance, actually, 50% in fact. And the astronaut crew quarters is where astronauts live in seclusion before missions to space, and it's where Bob and Doug have been living for the past 10 days. Now, the suit-up room inside of the crew quarters is something of a national landmark in and of itself. This room was first used as a suit-up room for Apollo 7 back in October 1968. And for every crew mission since then, when launching from U.S. soil, serving 400 different astronauts on a total of 150 missions, this is the room where Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins suited up over 50 years ago, where astronauts John Young and Robert Crippen suited up for the first shuttle flight, STS-1, back in 1981. And for every shuttle flight over the next 30 years, think of that. Every flight to the moon, every flight of Skylab and Apollo Soyuz, and every single space shuttle flight started in that room. And Leland, I know many of us have experienced some form of quarantine over the last several months, but I would imagine that 2 weeks in quarantine in preparation for a space flight is unlike any other time in your life. What were some traditions that took place?
Oh, we would get together and sit down and sometimes tell jokes and try to make the mood a little bit lighter. We would review our notes and things, but we would bring our families in and have a crew meal together with our families, and that was really touching. And it's just card games, different things to get ready for that iconic mission to space.
Absolutely. In many ways, everything prior to this moment was preparation, and everything after this is the mission. And prior to Wednesday's first attempt that we told you about, the suit-up room was last used for the final shuttle flight, STS-135, in 2011. And I want to mention one more detail about that mission. We want to show you a picture of the crew from the last American space flight launching from U.S. soil. In the picture, if we can bring it up, you'll see Doug Hurley. There it is, Doug Hurley. He was the pilot for STS-135. Today he is the commander of Demo 2, the spacecraft commander. Also suiting up for that mission was Chris Ferguson, Sandy Magnus, and Rex Walheim, who we just heard from a few minutes ago. And we are standing by to go into the suit-up room. We just passed the T-minus 4-hour mark, so suit-up is just beginning now, and there is our first look in the room. There is astronaut Doug Hurley getting into his spacesuit, and he's being helped by one of the suit technicians there. So this is our first look in the room. Again, Doug Hurley, he has flown into space 2 times before. He was the pilot on STS-127 and 135. And there's a wider shot. You can see astronaut Bob Behnken also in view now. Bob is to the right of your screen, and he also flew on 2 shuttle missions. Bob is a native of St. Anne, Missouri, so if you're watching from Missouri, especially St. Anne, wave hi, there's Bob. And Doug is from Appalachian, New York. He was born in Endicott, considers Appalachian his hometown. I know a lot of people there because I'm from there too, so if you're watching from upstate New York, shout out to you there too. This is so cool to see. Leland, this must bring back memories for you.
It does, but it's a little different than when I was suiting up, because there were Apollo era lazy boys that we were sitting in and leaning back in, and now they're in these really incredible sleek suits, as well as these the seats that are actually the same seats that are in the Crew Dragon vehicle, and that's pretty amazing.
Yes, these seats are basically ground support equipment seats. They're pretty much the same as the ones in the vehicle, as Leland said. So what they're doing right now is strapping the crew into the seats to prepare for the 2 big checkouts that they're doing right now. They're going to do a comms check, a bidirectional comms check, where they're going to check that the microphones that are inside of the helmets that the crew is wearing, that the suit techs can communicate with them bidirectionally. And they'll also do a leak test, which is a pressure test where they'll pressurize the spacesuit. So the suits are much more than just futuristic looking outfits. They do look like they come from a sci-fi movie. But they, as we described, they're designed to connect directly into Dragon seats to provide communications, cooling, and the ability to pressurize if necessary. A moment ago, you may have seen one of the suit technicians attaching a big white umbilical to the leg of the suit. That is the way in which the communications and the airflow, all of that is happening through that umbilical, which is connected to the seat. So right now, as you can see, the team is getting the crew all lined up.
pressures and making sure everything looks good prior to arming the LaunchEscape system, but not tracking a constraint at the moment. So overall, Dragon's healthy and ready for crew interface.
Okay, thank you for the update, MD. And this concludes the countdown.
are now getting closer to when we expect to see the crew complete their suit checks and walk out of the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout building.
And before they do, here's an introduction to the Joint Operations Commander for Demo 2. You see to the left of your screen there, former Air Force flight test engineer Bob Behnken. And here is a live look again inside the suit-up room in the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. We can see now NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. He's talking to the crew. You won't hear any audio in here, and actually we had some questions about this Wednesday because people were like, why can't I hear what they're saying? That's by design. It's not a mistake. We are really lucky to be able to show you this video live as they're suiting up, but you don't hear the audio because that's a little bit, you know, we try to give the crew a little bit of privacy, and so being able to talk freely and share really what's on their minds without having to worry about who's listening is part of the reason you don't hear audio in there. But that's Jim Bridenstine there talking to the crew, and it looks like Associate Administrator Jim Morehard is also in the room standing to the right of your screen.
And these are great moments to get a last chance to talk to the senior leadership of NASA as they're about to go off and launch into the cosmos. And I think when you look at how Bob and Doug complement each other, and how these SpaceX suits, you know, they really complement the astronauts too, because they're more form-fitted, they're custom-made, and this is a moment where they're getting ready to, you know, do the real deal. And Lauren, I think, you know, the integration of the suit and the vehicle and these seats is just really, really impressive. How y'all at SpaceX did that.
Yeah, the primary purpose of the spacesuit, it's a pressure suit. Now, the Dragon capsule is already pressurized, so even in the vacuum of space, the crew is safe when inside of Dragon, but in the unlikely event of an anomaly that causes the capsule to depressurize, we can actually flow oxygen or nitrox into the suit, and that will keep the astronauts pressurized in flight. So that's its main purpose. So it's that form and function, and some style there as well.
And for the kids out there that have 3D printers or have 3D printed, the actual helmets were made by 3D printing. So you could be a spacesuit designer yourself because you already have the skill set, and or fly in space one day if you wanted to.
And I'm curious about what kind of conversation might be going on with them. Looks like it's lighthearted. You can see Doug laughing there. I know that Mr. Bridenstine has said, you know, Bob and Doug, if you want to back out, it's not too late. I would imagine he may have said that again. I know they're ready to go. They're as eager as can be. And it looks like they may have another visitor coming in. Oh no, it looks like the administrator's just being passed something there, but.
You know, and it's really important. I mean, we've trained for so long. We've gone through the malfunction processes. Now he's doing a selfie.
Of course, you got to do a selfie. I didn't see them do this on Wednesday, so they were probably kicking themselves when they walked out. Why didn't we do a selfie in there?
I wonder if he has that Instagram filter to put the glasses on. Do you think he has it on?
Well, you can tweet at him and find out.
Yeah, I might have to do that. No, this is a great lighthearted moment. It helps gets the guys in a good frame set, mindset to you know, go off in space in a very calm and cool and collected way. I think he's now taking pictures of some of the crew techs or the suit techs, which is fantastic. It's all about bringing the family and the team together, you know, making everyone feel comfortable on flight day and helping us get to space safely as we always try to do.
And obviously this is a very serious mission, and you don't want to make too much light of it. But Leland, you mentioned Wednesday, and I thought that was a really good point, why it's important to be able to joke around and keep things light as you're getting ready to go to the launch.
Yeah, you know, one thing too with Rex, and we just talked to Rex, you know, we were, you know, in the caravan going over to the launch pad, we were kind of making some jokes, but as we were suiting up, we would look over each other, we would get up and high five, and we would say, hey, you're ready? Let's go, let's do this, you know, and it's just, you've already trained, you know how to do this, you've done it many, many times, and so I think it's, that lightheartedness is good, but, you know, right when you get in the vehicle, the 3, 2, 1 liftoff, that's when you're ready to go.
And they're the visitors making their way out of the room. And as we mentioned, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, I mean, they are two of the finest at what they do. And it's really starting to sink in that the mission is on as you see them in their spacesuits.
And seeing them in these suits has always been so inspiring to me from the first time that I saw them at Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters during training. It's kind of like a sci-fi film, but unlike a movie prop, which primarily just needs to look cool, our team designed the suit to maximize safety and functionality while maintaining style. Here are two members of our spacesuits team, Chris Trigg and Maria Sundin, telling us about how the suit came to be.
And we want to turn our attention back to the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. If we could, we want to take you to a picture of the doors. There they are. Those are the doors at the back of the crew quarters building, and it's an area where family, friends, and members of the media can share one final moment with the crew before launch. Beginning of the march towards launch for every American mission to space since 1968. This is the moment that is immortalized on film and video for 400 different astronauts from Apollo all the way through Space Shuttle, serving 150 total missions, and soon, if the weather cooperates, mission number 151 with the first 2 commercial crew astronauts. These doors carry with them a legacy of purpose and action, and today they will announce to all of us the start of this, NASA's SpaceX Demo 2 mission.
And you saw just a little bit of my walkout from STS-129, my last mission. And I remember having my friends and family out there. There was my chemistry teacher that was in the crowd. She got me turned on to science and helped me actually become an astronaut. And I just remember her being in the crowd saying, "Go Leland!" And it was just such a memorable moment for me. It kind of got more rocket fuel in my veins, getting me ready for my mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were just looking at a live picture outside of the building where we could see some of the folks gathered. We could see Doug and Bob's immediate families. There's a small contingent of media there. I mean, normally that place would be just kind of jam-packed with as many people as we could fit in there to capture that moment. We of course had to scale that back a little bit to maintain social distancing, but there's still a very excited group of people standing outside the building right now waiting for that to happen. And we are looking at a live picture now of Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley walking down that hallway in the astronaut crew quarters. We just saw Doug wave at the screen, and they're just turning the corner, getting inside that elevator. And this, you can't see it from here, but there is a banner hanging there. You can kind of see it in the back. There's a banner hanging on the wall of the elevator with the signatures of all the people who worked on this mission. So it was really important for them to hang that up in there so Bob and Doug could see it.
Yeah, we see that, and we see all those signatures of people that have helped us.
And there the doors are opening.
Here they come.
And there they are, NASA astronauts.
Small crowd, but big cheers.
NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, Doug on the left, Bob on the right, waving to the crowd there to cheer them on. And there are their families right in front of them.
The virtual hugs, a very special moment. Fist bumps.
You can hear them.
Ready? Let's light this candle, I agree. Launch America! Bye, guys.
Now they are getting into the Tesla Model X that's going to take them to the launch pad, being strapped into their seats.
Their suit techs are attaching their umbilicals, so integrated into the Teslas. These are not just any Tesla you can just buy off the web or in a Tesla dealership. They've been outfitted with cooling units, and that white umbilical, similar to what you saw in the suit room, that umbilical is being connected to the suit to provide cooling air to the astronauts while they're on the way to the pad. And those Falcon wing doors are closing.
Super sleek.
A rapid departure from the Astro van.
Yes, I would say so.
And their flight surgeon is in the front seat in the passenger side, taking the journey along with them.
As I mentioned last time, physicists were going to talk about the families coming
lot more than I
Yeah.
did on Wednesday. And you know, speaking of Bob and Doug and them being really calm and cool and collected, I had the opportunity to be in meetings with them and to watch them train. I have to say, and to all of my friends who work with them every single day, the feedback is always just what great people they are,
Right.
and just how not just bright and sharp they are, but just good people.
Right.
And around the office, we often refer to them as the dads.
The
And
dads? What
They're
is
the
that?
dads. They're dads. They are dads, and we've met their families. And when you see people on that very personal level, it starts to mean so much. They are a part of our team. You know, they're not a customer. They're our team. They're not a payload. They're our team. They're our family. And so we're just so excited to see the dads up there today.
Go dads!
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go send it over to Gary for an update from Houston. Gary?
Hey Marie, the space station team here is focused. All eyes are on the system checks that are happening across the board, and we're listening in as we close in on launch, and I can tell you that things are looking very good. Chris Cassidy will be watching from the International Space Station, right now flying over the Pacific Ocean and heading to cross right over the launch pad. We might even get some good views from the station. Hope to be capturing those. We'll have the launch view and the big screen up front, and everyone's excited to see our 2 crew members on their way to the International Space Station. But before we get to it, I just want to pass on good luck from the entire flight operations community here in Houston. It's always exciting to be doing something wholly new and history-making with station operations, and we can't wait to see our team members Bob and Doug in low Earth orbit and heading to the International Space Station. That's it from us here in Mission Control Houston. I'll send it back over to the team in Hawthorne for the latest happening there. John?
T-minus 20 minutes, 30 seconds. We're
Strong
continuing
back shield
to
started.
count down. Everything is still looking good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon. 22 minutes, 45 seconds after the hour.
Stage
Right
2
now,
orbital is complete.
you can see a large white cloud coming off of the strongback. That is normal. As we get ready to load the second stage with liquid oxygen, we have to chill in the plumbing lines going up that strongback. And so as we relieve pressure, the moist, humid Florida air condenses around it, and that gives you the cloud. So that tells us that things are actually on schedule. We did begin propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. Fuel loading on the second stage, I believe we just heard the call out that it is complete. First stage fuel load is continuing, and right now that's a little more than, it's about 60% of the way full. So things are looking good. Second stage is getting ready to begin the liquid oxygen loading. After they finish chilling in the lines that you see on the monitor, they'll begin the load at T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds. The range right now is go, ready to support. Weather continues to be go. As we inch our way closer, we're keeping our fingers crossed. We're waiting to hear if anybody calls out an issue, but for the moment, as you can see on the screen, it looks good. Now on the Dragon side, the Dragon mission director and the team there are reporting no issues. They've done their communications checkouts. The crew access arm, as you can see, is retracted away from the spacecraft. The crew is strapped in and they are ready to go. Now, final instructions will be going to the crew at T-minus 10 minutes. The crew displays will be configured for launch, and that setup will give astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley insight into how the launch is proceeding and provides constant updates on vehicle health. We've already heard the crew give their go, close their visors, and get ready for launch. For Dragon, it'll enter terminal count at T-minus 5 minutes. When it transitions to internal power, we'll hear continued call-outs on the countdown then as we get close to zero and the liftoff. But right now, at T-minus 18 minutes, 15 seconds, everything continues to be go for an on-time launch. So Dan, Jesse, things are looking pretty good. How are they doing over at your stand?
Things are great from about 15 feet away from you, John. And honestly, things are looking pretty great down at the pad there. We're seeing a lot more blue in the sky. Green is the color we want when we're talking about weather, and that's where we're sitting right now. So we're continuing to count down. We are under 18 minutes away from liftoff. Again, it's an instantaneous liftoff it's going to be 12:22 and 45 seconds here on the West Coast, 3:22 and 45 seconds over on the East Coast there in Florida. Just a reminder, it's going to be about a 9-minute ride up to orbit for the Falcon 9 and Bob and Doug on board Dragon. It'll be a 2-stage flight, so we'll see the first stage fly until we hear MECO, or main engine cutoff, about 2.5 minutes into flight. After that, the second stage will take over and continue to power them the rest of the way. Second engine cutoff comes in just under 9 minutes at about 8 minutes and 44 seconds. Following that second stage completing its job, it'll continue to coast for about 3 minutes. It'll do a slight attitude adjustment and null out any rate, so make sure it's not in any kind of a spin before they do separation. So that's when the Dragon spacecraft will physically separate from the Falcon 9 vehicle and Bob and Doug will be flying free. It's about a 19-hour ride if we launch today on time. So that means Bob and Doug will get on orbit. They'll have a number of burns, or those firings of those Draco thrusters that they'll do over
Stage 2 LOX load started.
We hear the LOX, the liquid oxygen load has now their flight until they get much closer, and it's time for that approach and docking. And we are expecting that with an on-time launch to happen today. That'll be coming tomorrow in the afternoon. All right, we have a special guest joining us. I'm going to toss it over to Jesse.
We are T-minus 15 minutes and 45 seconds from liftoff of our second demonstration mission today, and we have the honor of having SpaceX's President and COO, Gwen Shotwell, join us. Thanks, Gwen, for coming out and taking a few minutes to chat with us.
Thanks, Jesse.
We know you've been on console. How's the countdown been going so far in there?
Countdown is clean today, just like it was Wednesday. We did clear the weather hurdles sooner than we did on Wednesday. And the only thing we're watching right now is downrange weather and lightning at the staging location.
Of course.
But we will clear that hurdle at T-minus 7 minutes.
Awesome, great, very exciting. Now I'm going to throw it back to 2012 because you were on console for Dragon when it was first making its way to the space station. How does that experience compare to today?
Stage 2 LOX is on the DVs.
So I was nervous then. I stopped getting nervous for launches. Today I'm nervous again. Super nervous. Stomach and throat.
Understandable.
No, it's fantastic day today. I'm really excited. The team is pulled together. It's such a professional operation. When I say team, by the way, I mean SpaceX and NASA. These folks have been working incredibly hard and have done a fantastic job.
Yes, and we are all so excited. And we know that you have to get back inside of mission control, but is there anything that you wanted to say before liftoff to NASA and SpaceX?
Well, I want to thank NASA, of course, for their generosity and their help with getting to this place. I want to thank all the SpaceXers who have come together to make this moment in history. And I want to thank Elon for hiring me.
We thank Elon for hiring you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get back to mission control. And good luck with launch today.
Thanks, Jesse, and Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
Well, we are so excited. We are just a few minutes away from countdown, so we are going to turn it over to Dan and John for the final minutes in terminal count. Take it away, John.
T-minus 13 minutes, 30 seconds. Continuing to count down. We're continuing to load fuel onto the first stage. That should finish up in just about 6 minutes. Fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. That's closed out. And we are continuing to load liquid oxygen on both the first and second stage. The liquid oxygen load beginning on the second stage just about 3.5 minutes ago. We are also loading cryogenic helium into the storage vessels on the first and second stage, getting in the last little bits of helium when we keep it cryogenic, cold and liquefied. That gets us, just like we do with liquid oxygen, the maximum amount into the storage volume so that we can get the most performance out of the vehicle. Right now, we are in a fairly quiet state on the vehicle. Ground pumps continuing to put the propellant in to first and second stages. Next significant issue, callouts that we're going to hear will probably be inside the T-minus 10 minutes when they talk to the crew. We'll listen for that. But at the moment, everything continuing to look good at T-minus 12 minutes and 20 seconds.
getting real close now, John. It's only a little over 12 minutes away. Just a reminder for everybody, it's about a 9-minute ride uphill. We'll have some dueling boxes going on as that first stage is going to be coming home while the second stage is carrying Bob and Doug into orbit. But obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on our astronauts the whole way uphill. Some of the calls that you'll be hearing, as there will be what we call performance calls over the Dragon to ground the entire way uphill. And you'll just hear some of the SpaceX engineers calling out trajectories and booster performance. So we're always looking for that word nominal. I know that's one of John's favorite words. That's one of mine too. I want to hear nominal as much as possible on the way uphill. You might also hear some number and letter combinations, and those correspond to the different abort zones that Bob and Doug are in during their flight uphill. There's 1A and 1B, which signify that they're on the first stage. Those carry them from there in the Cape all the way up to about the very top of North Carolina. And then we'll have 2A through 2E or 2 Echo, and that will be on the second stage. And that goes from North Carolina all the way up to about the tip of Newfoundland, so in the northern Atlantic. And then there is a zone of the northern Atlantic that we're going to avoid. And so you should hear the call out be something similar to forward to Shannon. That just refers to Shannon, Ireland, which they'll be going off the coast of Ireland at the later stages of the second stage if they have to abort. So just prepping you now for some of those calls. You're hopefully going to hear that word nominal a whole lot on the way uphill. 10.5 minutes. Things are pretty quiet. As John I said, it'll pick up, and right at about 10 minutes, we'll wait for the crew just to confirm that their displays are in order. The crew is already strapped in and reported that they are go for launch. And we'll continue to watch the fuel gauges tick up on the Falcon 9 vehicle until fueling cuts off at just about 2 minutes prior to launch.
Dragon and SpaceX confirmed displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX Dragon displays are configured for launch.
Copy. Bob, Doug, on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, it's been a huge honor to help you get ready for today's historic mission. Know that we're with you, have an amazing flight, and enjoy those views of our beautiful planet.
Thanks, Jay. It is absolutely our honor to be part of this huge effort to get the United States back in the launch business. We'll talk to you from orbit. Thank you.
Copy all. Thanks for those words.
The SpaceX Corps, so again, that voice is going to be talking to Bob and Doug throughout their mission. Right here in Hawthorne, just offering a few quick words. The crew did confirm their crew displays are configured for launch. We're coming up on 9 minutes and counting.
We've gotten through T-minus 10 minutes with the crew discussions. Activity is now going to switch over to Falcon 9. Our next major event comes at T-minus 7 minutes. We begin what we call engine chill. Pre-valves will open. Those currently separate propellants on the first stage from getting down to the Merlin engines. We'll open the pre-valves. That allow fuel and liquid oxygen to flow to the top of the pumps. And more importantly, when we open the valves, that allow us to begin chilling the 9 Merlin 1D turbo pumps on the first stage engine. It'll take a few minutes to get them cold enough to where they would then be ready to pass the large amounts of liquid oxygen through the pumps and into the main thrust chambers when we get to engine ignition at T-minus 2 seconds. We don't want to try to run highly chilled liquid oxygen through a warm pump. You would flash that into gas, and running gas through a high-speed pump is not a good thing. So right now, we are waiting for T-minus 7 minutes. That'll start the engine chill. Shortly after that, we will also get the fuel shutdown. Listening to the SpaceX launch director in the background here. As I mentioned, at T-minus 7 minutes, as we start to chill, we will also get into the final topping off of stage 1 fuel, and then the fuel load will complete. situational awareness. As I mentioned, the pre-valves are open. And now we are topping off first stage fuel, getting ready to finish the fuel load. Liquid oxygen load on first and second stage will continue until the last 3 to 2 minutes of the countdown.
We should hear that call out RP1 load complete coming up in about 6 minutes. Again, RP1 is just that densified kerosene, that rocket fuel that Falcon 9 is going to be used to power Bob and Doug to orbit today.
And stage 1 fuel is both out.
Right on time. That call out indicates that the fuel loading on the first stage is complete. Draining back the lines now, so first stage and second stage fuel are complete. Liquid oxygen loading is continuing on both stages. You can see on the view on the left side of the monitor the condensation, cold gas wrapped around the stages as the tank skins are chilled by the densified liquid oxygen, picking up the humidity from the floor.
Like at this moment, we're a little more than 90% full. The oxidizer on the first stage ticking up towards that 80% mark on the second stage. We'll be counting down all the way till about 2 or 3 minutes, as John and I just said, until everything is loaded.
Falcon 9 heaters closed out.
And then we will go for launch.
Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count.
Vehicle tanks pressing more strong back retract.
Pressurizing the Falcon 9 tanks, we're going to open the clamp arm around the second stage and begin to retract the strong back. We'll move back about 2 degrees. That'll get us to liftoff position. At liftoff, the strong back will then recline about 45 degrees.
Stage 2 are complete.
Launch director called out the strong back retract has started. On the left, you'll see it go back just a couple of degrees.
Stage 1 are complete.
We're just 4 minutes away from liftoff. Again, at this moment, Bob and Doug are really just laser focused on those displays. They have insight directly into Dragon and the Falcon 9. They're able to see where their fuel loading is at, how everything's progressing down with the count.
AMTS final setup started.
Three and a half minutes for launch.
And the strong back is now reclining away from the Falcon 9.
under a minute now. The FTS, the flight termination system, has been armed.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, bottom dog.
Continuing to
do ignite to help slow the vehicle down as it re-enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. And then after the entry burn will be the landing burn, which is just a single engine.
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory.
And you heard
starting chill for entry.
Is that call out? They are still on a nominal trajectory on Dragon, still on second stage, and that's that MVAC engine on second stage on your left screen. Again, on your right screen is that first stage booster coming back towards our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. We're about a minute away from entry burn.
That second stage continuing to power Dragon into orbit. Again, if you're keeping an eye on that timer, that's going to continue to burn until 8 minutes and 44 seconds into flight. So a little over 2 minutes from now, we'll hear the call out SECO. It'll then be a little
Stage 2 propulsion is still good.
A little over 3 minutes until Dragon physically separates from the second stage of the Falcon 9 after the upper
Dragon
stage gets a
SpaceX
chance.
nominal trajectory.
Dragon tapping nominal trajectory.
Continuing to check in with Bob and Doug as they are on a nominal trajectory. Just about 10 seconds away from that first stage, starting that entry burn on your right screen. We should be able to see that view live. And there is that entry burn beginning. This burn lasts about 36 seconds long.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
That entry burn continues. We're just about a minute away from SECO. We'll have a number of events all happen in rapid succession. Second engine cut off. We'll be looking for that stage 1 landing burn shortly after.
Actually, just within a few seconds of each other. Such a cool view on your left screen, seeing Bob and Doug on Dragon. Right now you can see the displays that they are seeing right now themselves.
Terminal guidance.
And back to all set.
We are coming up 25 seconds or so away from SECO, or second engine cutoff.
Also the point where Bob and Doug are experiencing their highest G-force. We're seeing the counter tick up to right about 3.8.
Bobby Shannon.
You heard Shannon, so that just means they're in their final abort zones. If they were to abort at this point, either be an abort to orbit or to land off the coast of Ireland, standing by for second confirmation.
And back to all set. And back shutdown.
Confirmation of SECO, second engine cutoff.
Now we are waiting for our first stage to make its way to our drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbital insertion. Launch escape system is
nominal orbital insertion.
What you're seeing on your screen is a live view of our drone ship, where our first stage will be coming down. Looks like we lost that live view, but we'll wait for confirmation of that landing shortly here.
Falcon 9 first stage successfully landed.
And there you can see on your screen, Falcon 9 has landed. This is the first Falcon 9 to carry humans to orbit, so very exciting for us. And as you can see on your right screen, Bob and Doug are still making their way to their targeted orbit. So exciting today.
It doesn't stop.
It does not stop.
All right, we did hear again that call out, good orbital insertion, so that means Falcon 9 and Dragon right now exactly where they're supposed to be.
And we need an FRC alert, everyone.
And it's right at about 12 minutes when Dragon will separate. Looks like we saw a 0G indicator floating around there. I know Bob and Doug owe us a little bit about what exactly that is that they brought up with them.
And before separation, before Dragon initiates separation from the second stage, they do make make sure to make, they do ensure that the vehicle is not spinning and is in good condition before we separate.
That's right, the upper stage does small attitude maneuver using cold gas thrusters built into the rocket body itself.
Exactly, so we do expect that separation to occur in about a minute from now, but they do wait until they have full confirmation that it is ready to separate. Such cool views. I cannot get over this view that we are seeing right now. Bob and Doug on the right screen inside of Crew Dragon out in space.
Yeah, already 200 kilometers over planet Earth, or a little over 124 miles, traveling in excess of 2,700 meters, 27,000 meters per second, or about 16,000 miles per hour. Again, we're just standing by. That separation event should be coming up shortly, and they'll begin a series of checks on the Draco thrusters that are going to be used to maneuver and then power Dragon on its flight to the International Space Station. Standing by for separation.
Expected loss of signal, rolls.
It sounds like we had an expected LOS loss of signal with one of the ground stations. Waiting for confirmation now of that
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is a great view right in front of you of Dragon separating. And there's that call out. Dragon is now officially making its way to the International Space Station today.
Dragon SpaceX with that separation call. I'll have a few words for you from our Falcon team.
Standing by.
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Dragon de Ground. Bob Doug, on behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying the Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
Thanks, Paula. Congratulations to you and the F9 team for the first human ride for Falcon 9. And it was incredible. Appreciate all the hard work and thanks for the great ride to space.
Copy all.
Paula, I'd like to be proud of you guys and the rest of the team. Thank you so much for what you've done for us today, putting America back into low Earth orbit from the Florida coast.
Copy all. Good luck. Godspeed.
All right, so Bob and Doug are in
Dragon
space.
SpaceX, we confirm nominal vehicles activation and service section Draco checkouts. Nose cone deploys in progress.
Copy all. We're monitoring.
The Corps here in Hawthorne giving the crew a heads up that we have confirmation the nose cone is deploying. So again, that nose cone is going to open up a little bit more than 90 degrees, goes up to about, I think, 105 degrees, and that's going to expose the actual docking ring and the hatch that they're going to be going through once they attach to the International Space Station. And also 4 of those Draco thrusters, we call them the forward bulkhead thrusters, that are going to be used for these major phase burns or firings of those thrusters to actually raise their orbit gradually over the coming hours. Also heard good activation of the ECLIS, that's the Environmental Control and Life Support System. That's everything controlling their atmosphere, just keeping Dragon a nice, safe, habitable environment where they're going to be living for the next 19 hours until they arrive at the space station.
Right, exactly. Falcon 9's job may be done for today, but the mission is not over. Crew Dragon's job is not done. As you can see, Bob and Doug are still inside Crew Dragon, making their way. It will be a 19-hour trip to the International Space Station before they dock tomorrow morning. And such cool views. I love that we can get these live views here and see and watch what they're doing now that they are in orbit.
Yeah, it's incredible to just be looking over their shoulder and be along for the ride. And we're going to be with them, and we're going to be with all of you the entire way for their journey to the space station. We're going to be covering live throughout. Bob and Doug will obviously have a sleep period where they'll get about 8 hours of sleep a little bit later today before they wake up for all of their final approach. One of the major things we are looking forward to in the next couple of hours is going to be their first turn at the controls. So they're actually going to be using those touchscreen displays to take control and manually pilot Dragon. We'll walk you through what that's going to look like, and assuming we have some good ground station coverage, we'll be able to get views from right inside Dragon, looking over their shoulder as they manipulate the controls at the display. But I mean, we had a smooth ride uphill, both stages of the Falcon 9 doing their job, placing Bob and Doug into orbit. I mean, this is a day, this is a historical day. This is us kicking off that new era of spaceflight that we've all been talking about and longing for since the Space Shuttle program came to an end in 2011.
Yes.
And the weather cooperated.
Yes, second time's a charm.
Right.
All right, so day for the history books. As you can see, we have lost some live signal there, but the mission still continues, and we're going to send it over to KSC to continue broadcasting live with you.
Yeah, Jesse and Dan, we are just in awe over here. When I woke up this morning and looked at the weather forecast, I was like, man, we're going to be back here on Sunday, but we did it, and the room cleared out. Everybody was outside watching, and inside the lights were shaking